Hey guys, it's GHP, and let's get back to some more spoilers. So today they released a new mechanic about 10 minutes ago called bonding or bond. And what it means is you can basically have one of those cards in your hand, so it costs 7. And you can play it, exhaust a unit, I guess as part of the casting of it, and this card's cost will get reduced. So it's improvised if you play Magic, for example, or Convoke, something like that. Um, I don't think they worded it very intuitively, but that's what I'm gathering it means. So if I play turn 3 Valkyrie Enforcer, I can deplete my Valkyrie Enforcer with my and play a 4th power and play this on turn 4. Just as an example here. But let's evaluate this card. So, on its worst day, it's a 7 mana 4/3, which is fucking awful. Uh, that's really bad. But, if you play it for like 4 in a Valkyrie's deck, because it's a Valkyrie, this card's great. Like, this card is, well, not great, because it dies a torch, it doesn't get through Titan, and blah, blah, blah. But, I think this card's quite good in a Valkyrie's deck, uh, presuming you don't end up paying 7. When you pay 7, this card's awful. But let's actually take a look at what it does besides the stats. So it's a 4/3 flyer with Warcry, and it has the bond keyword. The Entomb of gain 3 armor I think is pretty irrelevant. It could be relevant on like a Runehammer, but realistically I doubt it's actually going to be impactful enough to matter. So if we ignore that text, Flying Warcry 4/3 is pretty good. If you play it for like 4 mana, that's pretty good. I think this card's excellent in draft. I think this card could see some play in a Valkyrie's deck, but I'm not sure how strong Bond is as a mechanic, and I'm not sure this card is that good for the tempo loss you have. Why is that lighting so bad? Like, it's so bright. What the hell? There's like no light outside. And there's no light coming from my monitor, basically. Besides the point, this card I just don't... I think this card's never seen play outside of a Valkyrie's deck. I think it's one of the best Valkyries we have, but I don't think we have enough cards to make Valkyries a deck yet. So right now I don't think this card's playable, but if we get a bunch of cheap, good Valkyries that we can make sure we power this card out by like turn 4, maybe this card's really good. One thing to keep in mind is you can only bond with 1 unit. Probably relevant. So let's look at our next card. I'm going to do all the bond cards first. We have Slope Sergeant, which I think is really cool. So it's a 6 mana 4/4 Yeti. Now, note, last time we talked about Yetis, I mentioned I hope they are the utility tribe. And this is a utility card, and I really like it. So it's a 6 mana 4/4, which is pretty bad. But, if you bond this, you draw 2, discard 2. That's pretty powerful. And I suspect this is actually a 3 or 4 mana card when you think about it. I'm sure in a Yeti's deck you play Wump and then you play this guy for 3 mana on turn 4. You draw 2, you discard 2, maybe you play something else on turn. Like, I think this card's really good in a Yeti's deck. I think this is one of the things they needed because that deck doesn't want to play cards like Wisdom, but it's lacking card advantage besides Scouting Party hitting your head. I think this card's quite good. I think it's going to see play, assuming there's a Yeti's deck. I don't think it's going to see a lot of play outside of one, but I think it being a Yeti is really important for this card. Now let's get into the Beet Potatoes. Yep, this exists. So it's a 6 mana 4/4 with Deadly Bond. So this is actually probably, I'm guessing it's a 4 or 5 mana card, but it's aggressive-ish. That's the thing, like this could go into an aggressive deck, but it also could just be a good mid-range card, which I really like about it. So you can pay 4 to give something -2, -1, and then buff this by +2/+1, which is really good. Killing off pesky things that are trying to chump block. Getting this card bigger than a Sandstorm Titan is pretty relevant, for example. Because you don't always want to trade it off. So it's a mana sink in a good body in something that's likely less than 6 mana. It's probably a 4 or 5 drop. I think this card's really good. I think this card's going to see some play. I'm just not sure where yet. It is an unseen, and it might be the best unseen we've seen so far. I think this card's really good. I think this card's definitely going to see some play, and I personally really want to play with this card right now. Our last card with this mechanic is a fucking thick boy. I want to take a moment to commemorate Into the Huru for being the most expensive card in Eternal. So we have a 16 mana 10/11 with Bond. So I'm gonna guess this card's actually like 11 mana. Guessing? Well, yeah, Martial Arthur, so I'm guessing like 11. But when you bond him, you silence each enemy unit, and then you bounce them all. So, you could play this in like Vodo combo as like a one-of. Because it's really shit when you draw it, but it's really good when you draw it when you're going off, because then you don't need Martial Ironthorn. I guess Ironthorn already makes that deck, but maybe this card is able to slot in there. The problem then becomes Ironthorn's ultimate does this effect, and this card is really shit to draw when Ironthorn's one of the best cards in your deck to draw, which is kind of concerning. I don't think this card sees a ton of play, but I'm going to put this card in Reanimator, and I'm going to piss some people off one day. Like, I'm just going to reanimate this card. That's all I want to do. Just let me reanimate this. They didn't say it can't be brought back from the graveyard. Unlike Spirit of Resistance, this is going in Reanimator at some point. I have no idea if that's a good decision, but I'm just going to. Let's take a look at some non-bond cards. These are some older cards that I kind of missed the review on. So let's start with Challenge by Law. Why are you so small? Challenge by Law is really interesting. So it's a 6 mana slow spell that kills a unit and silences the rest. Now, one thing to note is how this is worded. What it's actually saying is kill an enemy unit, silence the rest of the enemy units, not yours. I saw some confusion on Reddit. That's what this card's actually saying. So, the question, I don't think we can say this card's competing with Harsh Rule. The question is this card competing with Leave a Witness, for example, as Harsh Rule number 5 in a deck? Because this card is nice. It does have some non-bows. For example, if you want to play it in Huru Control, you're going to silence your own Permafrost. And that's really shit. So I don't think this card sees play with Permafrost. But maybe this card's like a one-of in a combo deck, because sometimes you don't want to Harsh Rule your own board to kill your opponents, because you're already like on parity, but you need to start forcing something through, or maybe you want to deal with their Mystic Ascendant, or you got flyers you want to get through, so you silence your Sandstorm Titan, whatever. I think this card's okay. The fact that Vanquish costs 2 mana, which it's basically everything that this card wants to hit, because you're not looking to hit Oni running with this card. Like, you're dead by then. But I think this is trying to hit all the vanquishable targets. I like Black Sky Harbinger. There is some nice effects, for example, versus Feral Control. I'm gonna kill your Steward of the Past, and I'm gonna silence your Vera and your Black Sky Harbinger. It's pretty good, because those aren't the best bodies. Well, Vera's okay, but you probably understand my point. I think this card's okay. I don't think it's gonna see a ton of play, but I wouldn't rule it out as seeing play as a one-of in some decks. Probably maybe some combo decks. I think it's okay. It's not an all-star or anything like that, though. Our next card is Strategize, which is probably my favorite card in the set. They actually printed a good primal card that's not a beater. What is my life? So, 2 mana, it's a slow spell, which is notable compared to Trailblaze. But 2 mana, draw 2, then put a card on bottom of your deck. For those of you playing Magic, this is close to Brainstorm. It's slow, but you don't need the fetch land to get rid of something. So I think this card is really good. People are comparing it to Trailblaze, which I don't agree with necessarily, and people are also comparing it to Second Sight, which although the effect is similar, putting a card on bottom is better than putting a card on top unless you're playing like Echo. So like control decks don't care about that, they'd rather this. The fact that it's 2 mana draw 2 cards is super good. And like if I'm playing Fel Control and I'm against I don't know, Combre, and my hand has like Lightning Storm in it, I can pitch that storm. Like that's okay. Or I've drawn too many to push top end. I'll just put something on bottom, whatever. And this card's really good. And I think it's going to see a ton of play in any probable control deck. Just the ability to draw 2 cards and have some selection for such a cheap cost. Like 2 mana is not used very much in control decks right now. Often it is play a favor or pass. And just being able to do this with your mana is really good. And this card's always going to be a fine top deck too. I think this card's really good. I think it's going to see a ton of play in probable control decks. Now let's look at the other 2 cards that were released yesterday. We got a very big version of Kettle Master. Susa resizing because I'm very professional. I looked at these beforehand. To 1 mana 1/1. So if you don't have spells in your jar, this is a 1 mana 1/1. But if you have 3 or more spells in your void, play a 2/2 with Charge or Reckless. So one thing to keep in mind is, in my opinion, this card is built for 2 purposes. This card is built for an aggressive deck that uses more spells than the average aggressive deck in Eternal right now. Like for example, Gino only plays 4 Rapid Shot, 4 Torch, 2 Flex slots, and 3 to 4 Rally. So 13 to 14 spells. The chances of you actually getting there with this card is really low. I don't think it gives enough value in that type of deck. The other option is put it in a deck with like Xenon Obelisk, because then it becomes a 2/2 with make it a 3/3, 3/3 make it a 4/4. You get my point. Another thing to note is the wolf or the hound does not actually disappear at the end of turn. So it is a token maker, it just makes small tokens and its body sucks. I think if there's a spells heavy red aggressive-ish deck, and I'll consider tokens half aggressive, I think this card could see play. I think in the current iteration of Praxis Tokens, for example, this card would not see play. There's not enough spells. But if that deck ever started playing more Purifies, maybe some boys play Rally, some don't, so let's assume they play Rally. Maybe we get some more impactful spells for that deck. Then this card could see some play there. I think it's a really cool card. I'm just not convinced it's that good. It's garbage in draft, but I think this card it's okay, and I'm going to want to play with it at some point. I'm just not sure where. Now let's look at our last card of the day. Geir Culture. The first thing, so let's just go over the card actually. Set meta 3/4. That sucks. But when it enters, you put a 1/1 Grenouille for each Grenouille in your void. That's okay. You can pay 3 and exhaust it to deal 1 damage to an enemy unit. So it can't hit players, it can't be a burn spell, for each of your Grenouille. That's okay. So one thing to note is it costs mana to do the second effect, which means you can't play this and use it. I think a lot of the times you're going to play this, it's going to be a 7 mana 6/7, for example, with stats. It is good to know that we're getting like a Grenouille Lord, because I know they're actually printing Grenouilles. I guess this counts as kind of a Lord effect, although it doesn't buff your team, which I'm sure we're going to get with all these Grenouille cards. I think this card's pretty solid in a Grenouille deck if the Grenouille deck is actually grindy and not an aggressive, like, rally your face down deck. But I feel like it's a rally your face down deck. And in that case, this card never sees play. But if it's actually slower than I'm expecting it to be, then this card might be a good enough top end to help bridge gaps. Like, if the board's stalled, or, like, you need to stall the board, you play this, you put, like, 6 or 7 power on the board, and then next turn you can pay 3 to shoot something for 4, maybe play some extra Grenouilles, make that go Mystic Ascendant or something, and maybe slowly grind yourself into a game. It does die to Suffocate, does die to Annihilate, does die to Rune Hammer. Like, this card is very hard to keep alive in my opinion, which is kind of a concern. Uh, I do think it's really awesome. I think this could see some play in a slow Grendelin deck, but I don't think Grendelin is going to be a very slow deck. And I could be wrong, but I'm not expecting a ton of points for this card. But that's the end of our spoilers for today, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching, and I'll see you guys next time.